The massive crystal chamber floated in space like a jewel among the stars. It was bigger than most space stations and older than entire civilizations. For thousands of years, the Galactic Tribunal had met here to decide the fate of countless worlds. Today, they would decide what to do about the humans. Sarah Chun stood in the center of the enormous room. The floor beneath her feet was made of some clear material that let her see the swirling galaxy below. Above her head, the ceiling stretched so high it seemed to touch the stars themselves. She was alone except for the 12 beings that sat in judgment around her. Each member of the tribunal belonged to a different alien race. They sat on floating platforms that moved slowly around the chamber like planets around a sun. Sarah had to turn her head to follow them as they circled her. The Zephyrians looked like giant butterflies made of metal and light. Their wings made soft musical sounds as they moved through the air. When they were amused, which they were now, the music became higher and faster. 3 of them circled overhead, their wing beats creating a mocking melody. The Korthik were made of living stone and crystal. They had no faces as humans understood them, just patterns of light that moved across their rocky surfaces. When they were happy about something, they made grinding sounds like mountains being crushed together. 2 Korthik were making those sounds now, and the noise echoed through the chamber. The Veltar had no solid form at all. They were clouds of glowing gas that could change shape at will. When they laughed, they flickered and danced like flames in the wind. 4 of them hung in the air around Sarah, their forms shifting and brightening with amusement. The other 3 tribunal members belonged to races so old and strange that Sarah could barely understand what she was looking at. One looked like a living shadow that spoke in whispers. Another seemed to be made of pure energy contained in a field of force. The third was something that existed in several dimensions at once, making it hard to focus on. At the head of the chamber sat Chief Arbiter's XI. His people had given up physical bodies millions of years ago. Now he appeared as a shifting pattern of lights and sounds that somehow conveyed meaning directly to the minds of those who listened. He was ancient beyond measure and had been judging younger races since before humans had discovered fire. The Arbiter's voice filled the chamber without sound, speaking directly into the minds of everyone present. "We are here to address the problem of humanity," he said. "A young race that has spread too far too fast and with no respect for the natural order of things." Sarah said nothing. She kept her face calm and her hands at her sides. She had been chosen for this moment because she could stay cool under pressure. But even she felt small standing in this place where the fate of entire worlds was decided. One of the Zephyrians flew lower, its metallic wings catching the light from the stars. "Look at it," the creature said in a voice like wind chimes. "So small and soft. How did such weak beings think they could challenge us?" A Korthik's rocky form rumbled with laughter. "They have been in space for less than 200 of their years. We have been traveling between stars since before their sun was born. What could they possibly know about running a galaxy?" The Veltar danced in the air, their gaseous forms brightening. "They multiply like bacteria," one of them said in a voice like steam escaping from a vent, "spreading to every world they can reach without asking permission. They show no respect for their betters." Chief Arbiter's XI let the other tribunal members voice their complaints. This was how these sessions always went. The lesser members would express their outrage and amusement, and then he would pronounce judgment. It was a ritual as old as the tribunal itself. "The charges against humanity are serious," the Arbiter finally said. "Reckless expansion across the galaxy. Violation of the development protocols that have kept peace for millennia. Disturbing the cosmic order that we have worked so hard to maintain." Sarah listened to every word. She had studied the tribunal for months, learning about each member and how they thought. She knew what they expected. Every young race that came before them acted the same way. They begged for mercy. They offered tribute. They promised to be good if only the tribunal would spare them. But Sarah was not here to beg. The Arbiter continued his speech. "Humanity has shown a troubling tendency toward independence. You refuse to accept guidance from your betters. You ignore the boundaries we have set. You develop technologies without permission and share them with other young races. Around the chamber, the alien beings made sounds of agreement. The Zephyrians' wing music became sharp and angry. The Korthek ground their rocky forms together like millstones. The Veltar flickered red and orange like flames of disapproval. Most disturbing of all, the Arbiter said, you have begun to influence other species. Races that once knew their place in the order of things now question our authority. They ask why the old rules still apply. They wonder if perhaps the galaxy might be better with ... new management. The last words carried a weight of threat that made the chamber seem colder. This was the real reason humanity was here. Not because they had spread too far or developed too fast, but because they had given other races ideas. Dangerous ideas about freedom and equality. One of the shadow beings spoke in a voice like whispers in an empty room. Perhaps we should simply erase them now and be done with it. We have done so before with troublesome species. The energy being crackled with agreement. Their worlds could be sterilized in a matter of days. The galaxy would quickly forget they ever existed. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her expression neutral. She had known this was a possibility. The tribunal had destroyed entire civilizations before when they became inconvenient. Earth could suffer the same fate with a simple decision. Chief Arbiter Zexis. Attention focused on Sarah like the light of a star. You have heard the charges, human. You understand the crimes your species has committed against the natural order. The penalty for such defiance is usually ... The chamber fell silent except for the distant sound of stars being born and dying in the galaxy below. Every alien eye, sensor, and consciousness focused on the small human woman standing alone in the center of the vast room. However, the Arbiter continued, we are not without mercy. We believe in giving young races a chance to learn from their mistakes. You may speak in defense of your species. Tell us why humanity should be allowed to continue existing. This was the moment every condemned species experienced. The chance to grovel, to promise they would be better, to offer whatever tribute might buy their survival. The tribunal members leaned forward eagerly, ready to enjoy the familiar show of desperation and fear, but Sarah Chun was not like the ambassadors who had come before her. She had not come here to beg for Earth's life. She had come to deliver a message. The alien beings waited for her to begin her plea. Some of them were already composing the words they would use to reject whatever pathetic offer she made. The Zephyrians prepared to sing their victory songs. The Korthik readied their grinding sounds of dismissal. The Veltar began to glow brighter in anticipation. Sarah looked around the chamber slowly, meeting what passed for eyes among the various alien forms. When she was sure she had their complete attention, she spoke a single word that would change everything. Warning. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. The chamber's acoustics carried it to every corner, where it echoed and repeated until it seemed to come from everywhere at once. The alien beings stared at her in confusion and growing alarm. Chief Arbiter Zexis' form flickered with surprise. In all his eons of experience, no species had ever responded to the tribunal's judgment with a warning. What did you say, human? Sarah's voice was calm and clear when she repeated herself. I said warning. That is what I am here to deliver. A warning from humanity to the Galactic Tribunal. The chamber erupted in sounds of shock and outrage. The Zephyrians' wing music became a discordant screech. The Korthik's grinding sounds turned into angry roars. The Veltar flared bright red like warning signals. Warning? One of the Zephyrians shrieked. You dare to threaten us? You are nothing but insects compared to our power. A Korthak's rocky form blazed with angry light. We could crush your entire species without effort. What possible warning could you give to beings like us? But Sarah noticed something the other tribunal members had missed. Chief Arbiter Zexis was not joining in their outrage. His ancient form had gone very still, and she could sense him thinking furiously. He was old enough to remember other young races that had surprised the tribunal. Most of them were dead. now, but a few had become problems that took considerable effort to solve. "Explain yourself, human," the Arbiter said quietly. His mental voice cut through the noise of the other members' protests. "What warning do you bring?" Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the kind of smile a predator might wear when it was no longer pretending to be prey. "The warning is simple," she said. "Humanity tried to do this the easy way first. We tried to fit into your system. We tried to follow your rules. We tried to be the good little species you wanted us to be." She paused to let that sink in before continuing. "But you kept pushing. You kept testing us. You kept trying to put us in a cage that was too small for what we are." The alien beings fell silent, sensing that something fundamental had changed in the chamber. This was not going according to the ancient script they had followed for thousands of years. "So now we are here to tell you that the easy way is over," Sarah said. "From this moment forward, things are going to be different. And when they ask how it all started, when they wonder why the old order fell apart, we want you to remember this moment." She looked directly at Chief Arbiter Zexhai as she delivered her final words. "Don't blame us for what comes next. You were warned." The silence in the chamber stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Chief Arbiter Zexhai's ancient form pulsed with colors that had no names in any human language. The other tribunal members shifted on their floating platforms, unsure how to respond to something they had never encountered before. Finally, one of the Zephyrians broke the quiet with a sound like breaking glass. "Threats from a primitive species? This is beyond insult. It is madness." Sarah reached into her diplomatic pouch and pulled out a small device no bigger than her hand. The tribunal security systems immediately scanned it and found nothing dangerous. It appeared to be a simple holographic projector, the kind used for basic presentations. She placed it on the transparent floor and stepped back. "I am not here to threaten you," Sarah said calmly. "I am here to teach you about us, about what we really are." She activated the device. Light sprang up around her, forming images that filled the center of the chamber. The first image showed Earth as it appeared from space, a blue and green marble floating in the darkness. "This is our world," Sarah said. "You have probably seen it in your files. A small planet orbiting an average star in what you consider a backwater region of the galaxy. Nothing special about it. Nothing that should worry beings like you." The image changed, showing Earth's surface. But these were not pictures of cities or peaceful landscapes. Instead, they showed violence, wars, destruction, humans fighting humans with weapons that grew more terrible with each passing century. A Korthik rumbled with what might have been amusement. "You show us your own barbarism as if it is something to be proud of? This only proves what we already know. You are a violent, primitive species that has barely learned to control fire." Sarah nodded as if agreeing. "You are right. We are violent. But you misunderstand what that means." The images shifted, showing not just human wars but the disasters that had struck Earth throughout its history. Massive volcanoes that covered the sky with ash for years, ice ages that buried continents under miles of frozen water, meteors that hit with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs, plagues that killed millions. "Every few thousand years, something tries to kill us all," Sarah said. "The planet itself attacks us with earthquakes and storms. Space throws rocks at us. Disease spreads through our populations like wildfire, and every time we survive." The holographic display showed humans adapting to each disaster, building shelters in the ice, finding ways to grow food when the sun was blocked out, creating medicines to fight diseases that had never existed before. Each time they were knocked down, they got back up stronger than before. "You call us primitive," Sarah continued. "But primitives do not survive what we have survived. They die out and are forgotten. We are still here because we learned the most important lesson in the universe." One of the Veltar flickered with curiosity. "And what lesson is that, little human?" Sarah's smile was cold as winter. "That everything that does not kill you can be turned into a weapon." The images changed again, showing human technology. But not the peaceful tools the tribunal expected to see from a young civilization. Instead, they saw weapons. Terrible, creative, efficient weapons designed by minds that had spent millennia learning how to kill. You want to know what we are? Sarah asked. We are the species that looked at the power of the atom and asked how we could use it to destroy our enemies. We are the species that took diseases and turned them into biological weapons. We are the species that learned to split reality itself, to move faster than light. The display showed human soldiers in different time periods. Warriors with bronze swords, knights in metal armor, soldiers with gunpowder weapons, pilots flying machines that could level entire cities. Each generation had found new ways to kill more efficiently than the last. Your mistake, Sarah said, is thinking that violence makes a species weak. You believe that peaceful creatures are more advanced, more civilized, more worthy of respect, but you have never faced a true predator. Chief Arbiter Zexhai's form began to glow brighter. You forget yourself, human. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed species that had weapons you cannot imagine. Your little knives and explosives mean nothing to beings who can reshape matter with a thought. Sarah laughed, and the sound echoed through the chamber like breaking crystal. Knives and explosives? Is that what you think we brought to this galaxy? The holographic display shifted to show something that made several tribunal members recoil in shock. It was a map of local space, but not as they knew it. This map showed human ships and installations scattered throughout star systems that were supposed to be empty. Bases on asteroids that should have been barren rocks. Colonies on worlds that were listed as uninhabitable in the tribunal's records. 4. 50 years you have been watching us spread to the worlds you gave us permission to settle, Sarah said. Nice, safe planets far from anything important. Worlds where we could be contained and controlled. The map zoomed in to show the details of human settlements. But these were not the farming colonies and mining operations the tribunal expected. They were military installations, weapons factories, training centers for soldiers who learned to fight in zero gravity and toxic atmospheres. What you did not notice, Sarah continued, is that we have also been spreading to the worlds you did not give us permission to settle. The dead rocks you thought were worthless. The gas giants you ignored because they had no solid surface. The asteroids you dismissed as space debris. More images appeared showing massive human structures hidden inside hollow asteroids, floating cities in the upper atmospheres of gas giants, underground complexes carved into the cores of dead moons. Each installation was heavily armed and perfectly hidden from the tribunal's sensors. Zephyrin's wing music became high and sharp. With alarm, this is impossible. Our surveillance networks monitor every human ship. We know where every one of your colonies is located. Sarah shook her head. You know where we wanted you to think our colonies were located? You have been watching the ships we wanted you to see, while the real colonization fleets used routes you never imagined existed. The display showed human ships moving through space in ways that should have been impossible. Some traveled through what looked like empty space but was actually folded dimensions that bypassed normal physics. Others moved by riding gravitational waves created by controlled black holes. A few simply teleported from one star system to another using technology that made the tribunals faster than light. Travel looked like walking. You see, we learned something important when we first met other species in this galaxy, Sarah said. We learned that everyone was watching us. Everyone was measuring us. Everyone was deciding whether we were a threat or just another primitive species to be managed. The images shifted to show human diplomats meeting with various alien races. These were the first contact sessions that had happened decades ago, when humanity was still new to the galaxy. The humans in these images looked nervous and eager to. Please, they asked questions like students learning from teachers. So we decided to be very careful about what we let you see, Sarah continued. We showed you the humans we wanted you to see, peaceful explorers, eager traders, grateful recipients of your wisdom and guidance. But now the display showed what had really been happening during those meetings. While the human diplomats were asking innocent questions, hidden recording devices were capturing every detail about alien technology. Subtle scanners were analyzing alien biology. Tiny probes were sampling alien materials. Every time we met with one of your species, we learned something new, Sarah said. How your ships worked, how your weapons functioned, how your bodies could be hurt, how your minds could be influenced. The Korthak's rocky forms began to glow. With anger, you were spying on us from the very beginning? Sarah nodded calmly. Of course we were. That is what intelligent predators do when they enter a new territory. They study the existing apex species. They learn their strengths and weaknesses. They plan for the day when conflict becomes inevitable. The display now showed detailed analyses of every tribunal member species. Biological charts that mapped Zephyrian neural networks. Chemical formulas that could dissolve Korthak crystalline structures. Energy patterns that could disrupt Veltar gas matrices. Each alien race was laid bare like a medical specimen prepared for dissection. You made this easy for us, Sarah said. You were so confident in your superiority that you never bothered to hide your capabilities. You demonstrated your technologies freely, thinking that primitive humans could never understand or replicate them. New images appeared showing human laboratories where alien technologies were being studied and improved. Scientists worked alongside quantum computers to reverse engineer Zephyrian flight systems. Engineers used molecular assemblers to create synthetic versions of Korthak crystal matrices. Researchers manipulated plasma fields to mimic Veltar energy forms. But understanding your technology was only the first step, Sarah said. The real work was figuring out how to turn it against you. The display shifted to show weapons that looked like nothing any tribunal member had ever seen. Devices that could disrupt the quantum fields Zephyrians used for flight. Resonance cannons designed to shatter Korthak crystal bodies. Containment fields specifically calibrated to compress and solidify Veltar gas forms. Chief Arbiter Zexhai S. Ancient. Composure was beginning to crack. His form flickered between different states of existence as he processed what he was seeing. This level of advancement should be impossible for your species. Your development timeline indicates you should still be struggling with basic fusion power. Sarah's smile became even colder. Our development timeline is another thing we let you think you understood. You based your calculations on our public technology. The things we use for trade and civilian purposes. You never saw what we were building in secret. The holographic display expanded to show the true scope of human technological advancement. Weapons that could tear holes in space-time itself. Defenses that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Communication systems that worked by manipulating quantum entanglement across galactic distances. For 50 years, while you thought you were watching primitive humans fumble their way through space, we were actually preparing for war, Sarah said. Not the kind of war you understand, with fleets of ships shooting at each other across empty space. We were preparing for the kind of war that humans have always been best at. The images changed one final time, showing something that made every tribunal member freeze in horror. It was a detailed plan for the complete dismantling of their galactic civilization. Not through conquest or destruction, but through precise, surgical strikes that would collapse their power structure like a house of cards. You want to know what kind of warning I brought you? Sarah asked. This is it. For the first time in your long lives, you are facing a species that studied you before you could study them. A species that prepared for this confrontation before you even knew there would be one. She gestured to the holographic display that now showed the entire galaxy marked with human positions and strategic analyses. The age of the Galactic Tribunal's absolute power is ending, and the only question left is whether it ends peacefully or violently. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of alien hearts beating faster than they had in centuries. The massive crystal chamber suddenly filled with warning sounds. Red lights flashed from hidden panels in the walls. The tribunal security systems had detected something wrong, but none of the ancient beings could understand what was happening. Chief Arbiter Zexhia's form blazed with alarm as he tried to access the station's defensive systems. "What have you done, human?" Sarah stood calmly in the center of the chamber as chaos erupted around her. The floating platforms carrying the tribunal members began to shake and drift out of their carefully programmed paths. The Zephyrians tried to fly toward the exits, but their wings would not respond properly. The Korthic attempted to use their crystalline bodies to break through the chamber walls, but their molecular structure felt strange and weak. "I have not done anything," Sarah said truthfully, "but my ship has." On the holographic display, new images appeared showing Sarah's diplomatic vessel. It looked like a simple transport craft, no bigger than a luxury yacht. The kind of ship any ambassador might use to travel between worlds. But now the display showed its true nature. Hidden compartments opened along the ship's hull, revealing technology that should not have existed. Quantum field generators that could manipulate space itself. Dimensional anchor points that could lock entire regions of space into artificial stability. Most terrifying of all, a network of microscopic machines that had been spreading through the tribunal station ever since the ship had docked. "For the past 6 hours, while I was being processed through your security systems, my ship was releasing nanobots into your station's atmosphere," Sarah explained. "Machines so small your sensors could not detect them. They spread through your air recycling systems like invisible smoke." The display zoomed in to show the tiny machines at work. They were crawling through the station's electronic systems, making small changes to the programming. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to slowly take control of critical functions. A Veltar-esque gaseous form flickered with panic. "Nanobots? But such technology requires manufacturing precision beyond what your species should possess," Sarah nodded. "You are right. We should not have been able to build them. Just like we should not have been able to map your genetics, decode your languages, or infiltrate your civilizations. But we did all of those things because you underestimated what humans can accomplish when they are properly motivated." One of the Zephyrians tried to send a telepathic message to the station's security forces, but found that the communication systems were no longer responding to tribunal commands. "You are committing an act of war against the galactic government." "No," Sarah said calmly, "I am preventing one." The holographic display changed to show what was happening throughout the galaxy at that very moment. Human agents who had been living normal lives as traders, researchers, and workers were suddenly revealing their true purposes, but they were not attacking anyone or destroying anything. Instead, they were simply stepping forward and identifying themselves. "For 50 years, we have been placing our people throughout your civilizations," Sarah said. "Not as conquerors or saboteurs, but as observers and friends. They married into your families. They helped build your cities. They fought beside your soldiers and healed your sick." The images showed humans working alongside aliens in countless different roles. Human doctors treating Korthic crystal rot, disease. Human engineers helping Zephyrians improve their wing designs. Human teachers showing Veltar younglings how to maintain stable forms. In each case, the humans had been trusted members of alien communities for decades. "You see, we learned something important about conquest from studying your history," Sarah continued. "The best way to take over a civilization is not to destroy it from the outside. It is to become so much a part of it that removing you would cause the whole system to collapse." Chief Arbiter Zexhia's form was fluctuating wildly as he tried to process this information. "You cannot possibly have infiltrated every world in the galaxy. The logistics alone would be impossible," Sarah smiled. "You are right again. We did not infiltrate every world. We did not need to. We only needed to infiltrate the important ones. The ones that control trade routes, communication networks, and resource distribution. The ones that other worlds depend on for survival." The display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with critical worlds highlighted in red. Transport hubs that connected dozens of star systems. Manufacturing centers that produced essential technologies. Agricultural worlds that fed entire sectors. Mining operations that provided rare materials needed for faster-than-light travel. If these key worlds were to suddenly stop functioning, Sarah said, the entire galactic economy would collapse within months. Trillions of beings would face starvation, isolation, and technological breakdown. The tribunal members stared at the map in growing horror. They had never thought about how fragile their civilization really was. They had assumed that their power came from their advanced technology and ancient wisdom. They had never considered that it actually came from the smooth functioning of countless interconnected systems. "But we are not here to destroy your civilization," Sarah said. "We are here to change it." New images appeared on the display, showing documents and recordings. That made several tribunal members cry out in shock. These were records of the tribunal's secret meetings, conversations about which young species should be eliminated, plans for keeping other races weak and dependent, orders for the destruction of entire worlds that had shown too much promise. "You rule through fear and manipulation," Sarah said. "You destroy any species that might challenge your authority. You keep the galaxy divided and weak so that no one can threaten your position at the top." The recordings played audio of tribunal members discussing the elimination of promising young races. Chief Arbiter Zexhi's voice could be heard giving orders for the sterilization of worlds that had developed dangerous technologies. Other members debated which civilizations should be turned against each other to prevent them from forming alliances. "Where did you get these recordings?" one of the shadow beings whispered. "These meetings were protected by psychic barriers that no technology can penetrate." Sarah's expression grew cold. "You forgot that some technologies are not based on machinery. Some are based on biology. And some humans have developed abilities that your psychic barriers were never designed to stop." The display showed images of humans who looked ordinary but were clearly something more. Their brain scans revealed unusual patterns of activity. Tests showed them performing impossible feats of mental power, moving objects with their thoughts, reading memories from physical contact. Most disturbing of all, projecting their consciousness across vast distances to observe events in real time. Psychic humans? A Cortex crystalline form dimmed with disbelief. But mental powers require millions of years of evolution to develop naturally. "Who said anything about natural evolution?" Sarah asked. "We learned about psychic abilities from studying your own species. Then we found ways to artificially trigger the same developments in human volunteers." The images showed human research facilities where volunteers underwent treatments that unlocked psychic potential. The process was dangerous and painful, with many subjects dying or suffering permanent damage. But enough succeeded to create a small force of human telepaths capable of infiltrating even the most secure alien facilities. "You experimented on your own species?" Chief Arbiter Zexhi's voice carried a note of genuine horror. Sarah nodded without shame. "Of course we did. That is what humans do when we need to develop new capabilities quickly. We volunteer for dangerous experiments. We risk our lives to gain advantages over our enemies. We sacrifice ourselves for the good of our species." The display showed the true scope of human infiltration throughout the galaxy. Psychic agents reading the minds of government officials. Shapeshifters who had undergone genetic modification to appear like different alien species. Cyborgs with mechanical implants that let them interface directly with alien computer systems. "Every major decision made by your tribunal in the past 20 years has been observed by human agents," Sarah said. "Every secret plan has been recorded. Every hidden weakness has been cataloged. We know things about your own civilizations that you have forgotten." The tribunal members were beginning to panic. Some tried to flee the chamber, but found that the exits had sealed themselves. Others attempted to use their powers to attack Sarah, but discovered that their abilities were being dampened by fields generated throughout the station. "You cannot hold us here," one of the Veltar said, its gaseous form flickering with rage. "The other members of the galactic government will notice our absence. They will send rescue fleets?" Sarah laughed. "The other members of the galactic government are having similar conversations with human ambassadors right now. This is happening simultaneously across dozens of worlds. By tomorrow, every major government in the galaxy will understand the new reality. The display showed other chambers on other worlds where human representatives were, delivering similar presentations to alien leaders. Each one was revealing the same truth, that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, and that the old order was about to change whether the current rulers liked it or not. You see, Sarah said, we learned another important lesson from studying galactic history. The key to successful revolution is not to attack the system directly. It is to make the system irrelevant. New images appeared showing massive human fleets emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. But these were not invasion forces coming to conquer alien worlds. They were construction fleets beginning to build alternative infrastructure, new trade routes that bypassed tribunal-controlled systems, independent communication networks that did not rely on government-approved channels, mobile manufacturing stations that could produce advanced technology without using regulated facilities. We are not here to destroy your civilization, Sarah repeated. We are here to replace it. And we are giving you the choice to join the new system or become irrelevant to it. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of alien hearts beating in terror. For the first time in their long lives, the members of the Galactic Tribunal understood what it felt like to be powerless. Chief Arbiter Zexhi's form had stabilized, but his mental voice was smaller than before. What? What do you want from U.S.? Sarah's smile returned, but it was not the cold expression she had worn before. For the first time, there was something almost gentle in her eyes. We want you to remember this moment. We want you to understand that everything you thought you knew about humanity was wrong. And we want you to decide whether you will be part of the solution or part of the problem. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed a vision of what the galaxy could become. Alien and human settlements working together as equals. Trade flowing freely between worlds without government restrictions. Young civilizations allowed to develop naturally without interference from ancient powers. The old way of ruling through fear and control is ending, Sarah said. The new way has already begun. The only question is whether you will help us build something better, or whether you will fight to preserve something that is already dead. The tribunal members looked at each other with expressions of confusion and growing dread. They had thought this would be a simple judgment session. Instead, they had discovered that they were the ones being judged. Chief Arbiter Zexhi's ancient form pulsed with colors that showed his growing desperation. You speak of replacing our civilization as if it is a simple matter. Do you have any idea what you are proposing? The Galactic Tribunal has maintained peace for over 50,000 years. Without our guidance, the galaxy would descend into chaos and war. Sarah's expression did not change. Peace? Is that what you call the systematic destruction of promising young species? Is that what you call keeping entire civilizations trapped in technological stagnation? Is that what you call turning neighbor against neighbor to prevent them from growing too strong? The holographic display shifted to show a timeline stretching back thousands of years. It revealed the true history of the tribunal's rule, documented by human agents who had spent decades digging through ancient archives and forgotten records. The Malthry Federation, Sarah said, pointing to one entry on the timeline. A peaceful alliance of 12 species that developed advanced medical technology. They could cure diseases that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. So you convinced their neighbors that the Malthry were planning to use biological weapons. The resulting war wiped out all 12 species. The display showed the burned worlds where the Malthry had once lived. Empty planets that should have been centers of learning and healing, now nothing but radioactive wastelands. The Kelvon Empire? Sarah continued, highlighting another period. They discovered how to manipulate gravity to create unlimited clean energy. Such technology could have freed every world from dependence on rare fuel sources. So you secretly funded rebels within their government until civil war tore their empire apart. More dead worlds appeared on the display. civilizations that had been on the verge of breakthrough discoveries, only to be destroyed by conflicts that seemed to arise from nowhere. The Threnody Collective, Sarah said. They developed faster-than-light communication that could have connected every world in the galaxy instantly. Perfect for maintaining peace and understanding between distant species. So you released a computer virus that destroyed their entire network and drove them back to primitive radio signals. One of the Zephyrians tried to interrupt with a defensive chirp. Those species were becoming dangerous. Left unchecked, they would have upset the balance of power. Someone had to maintain stability. Sarah turned to face the butterfly-like creature. Stability for whom? For you? You destroyed entire civilizations because they might have become inconvenient for your rule. You committed genocide on a galactic scale to preserve your own power. The display now showed a comprehensive map of the galaxy with thousands of markers, indicating destroyed civilizations. Species that had been eliminated not because they were evil or dangerous, but because they had shown too much potential. The scope of the tribunal's crimes was staggering. But the worst part, Sarah said, is what you did to the survivors. New images appeared showing species that had been allowed to live, but only after being broken and made dependent. The display revealed how the tribunal had deliberately stunted their development, keeping them weak and grateful for whatever scraps of technology they were allowed to have. The Urani people once had a star-spanning empire, Sarah said. Now they are barely allowed to travel between their own moons. The Drachmoth were master geneticists who could have solved hunger across the galaxy. Now they struggle to grow basic crops on their reservations. The Quellan built cities that floated in space itself. Now they live in underground tunnels and beg for permission to see the stars. Each example struck the tribunal members like a physical blow. They had thought their actions were necessary for maintaining order. They had never stopped to consider the cost in terms of lost potential and destroyed dreams. Thousands of species reduced to shadows of what they once were. Sarah continued. All so that you could maintain your position at the top of the galactic hierarchy. All so that no one could challenge your authority or question your decisions. Chief Arbiter Zexhi's form flickered with something that might have been shame. The burden of leadership requires difficult choices. Not every species can be allowed to develop without limits. Some must be restrained for the greater good. Sarah shook her head. That is what every tyrant tells themselves, that their oppression is really protection. That their victims should be grateful for their chains. But the truth is simpler. You rule through fear because you are afraid. The holographic display changed to show detailed psychological profiles of each tribunal member. The data had been gathered by human telepaths over many years, revealing the deep insecurities and fears that drove the ancient beings. You, Zexhi, are terrified of becoming obsolete, Sarah said, looking directly at the Chief Arbiter. Your species gave up physical form to become beings of pure thought, but now you wonder if thought alone has any real value. You maintain power over others because it is the only way you can convince yourself that you still matter. The Chief Arbiter's form blazed with anger, but he could not deny the accuracy of the assessment. Sarah turned to the Zephyrians. You fear that without your music and beauty, no one will remember you. So you destroy anything that might overshadow your art? You eliminate species that might create something more wonderful than your wing songs? The butterfly-like creature's music became discordant with distress. They had indeed destroyed several civilizations whose art had threatened to surpass their own achievements. And you, Sarah said to the Korthik, fear entropy. You are beings of crystal and stone, built to last forever. But you have seen worlds crumble and stars die. You know that even you will eventually fade. So you try to freeze the galaxy in place, keeping everything exactly as it is so that nothing can change or decay. The rocky being's forms dimmed as they recognized the truth in her words. They had indeed sabotaged technologies that might have led to rapid social change, preferring stagnation to the risk of loss. Each of you rules from fear, Sarah concluded. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being surpassed, fear of becoming irrelevant. And because you are afraid, you make sure that everyone else stays afraid too. The chamber fell silent as the tribunal members absorbed this psychological dissection. For beings who had considered themselves the wisest in the galaxy, it was a devastating revelation, but Sarah was not finished. The holographic display changed again, this time showing something that made every tribunal member freeze in terror. It was Earth's military command center, and it was not empty. While I have been talking to you, Sarah said, my people have been making final preparations. Every human ship in the galaxy has received updated targeting information. Every human agent has been given their final orders. Every human colony has armed its defensive systems. The display showed the true scope of humanity's military preparations. Hidden battle fleets emerging from asteroid bases. Weapons platforms activating. In dead star systems. Soldiers taking positions on hundreds of worlds throughout the galaxy. We are not here to negotiate, Sarah said. We are not here to ask for your permission to exist. We are here to inform you that your reign is over and to give you one final choice. A Veltaris gaseous form flickered with desperate panic. You cannot seriously be threatening to attack the entire galactic government. The consequences would be unthinkable. Billions would die in the chaos that followed. Sarah nodded gravely. You are absolutely right. If we destroyed your government through military force, the resulting chaos would kill more beings than any war in galactic history. Entire sectors would collapse. Trillions would starve as trade networks failed. The galaxy would burn. She paused to let that sink in before continuing. That is why we are not going to destroy your government. We are going to replace it. The display changed to show something unprecedented in galactic history. Across hundreds of worlds, representatives from dozens of species were gathering for simultaneous meetings. But these were not the usual diplomatic sessions dominated by tribunal observers. These were direct negotiations between species that had been kept apart for millennia. For the past year, our agents have been facilitating contact between civilizations that you kept isolated from each other, Sarah said. The Drachmath have met the Urani. The Quellan have spoken with the survivors of the Malthari. Species that were told they were alone have discovered that they have allies. The images showed alien beings working together on projects that should have been impossible. Shared technologies that bypassed tribunal restrictions. Joint research that was advancing faster than any single species could achieve alone. Most importantly, military alliances that could defend against tribunal retaliation. They call it the Liberation Alliance, Sarah said. 67 species working together to build a new kind of galactic government, one based on cooperation instead of domination, one that encourages growth instead of preventing it. Chief Arbiter. Zexhi's form was now fluctuating wildly between different states of existence. This is impossible. We would have detected such widespread coordination. Our intelligence networks monitor every world. Sarah smiled coldly. Your intelligence networks report to us now. Have been for the past 10 years. We have been feeding you false information while coordinating the real resistance right under your noses. The display showed the shocking truth. Many of the tribunal's most trusted agents were actually human operatives or aliens, who had been turned against their former masters. The intelligence reports that had kept the tribunal feeling secure were carefully crafted lies designed to hide the growing rebellion. Every time you thought you were crushing a potential threat, you were actually eliminating someone who opposed our plans, Sarah said. Every time you believed you were maintaining control, you were actually helping us remove obstacles to the new order. The revelation was devastating. For decades, the tribunal had been unknowingly working to destroy their own power base while strengthening their enemies. But why? One of the shadow beings whispered, "Why reveal all of this now? Why not simply attack us without warning?" Sarah's expression grew serious. Because despite everything you have done, we believe in giving people choices. We believe that even tyrants can change if they are given the opportunity. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing two possible futures for the galaxy. In one, the Tribunal fought against the change and was destroyed in a war that devastated countless worlds. In the other, they accepted the new reality and found roles for themselves in a more equal galactic community. "You can choose to fight us," Sarah said. "You can use whatever power you have left to try to maintain your old system, but if you do, you will lose. And the cost of that loss will be measured in the deaths of trillions of innocent beings." She gestured to the peaceful future shown on the display. "Or you can choose to help us build something better. Your knowledge and experience could be valuable in creating a truly just galactic government. Your species could continue to contribute to galactic civilization, just not as its unchallenged rulers." The chamber fell silent as the tribunal members contemplated their options. For the first time in their long lives, they faced a choice between admitting their failures and watching everything burn. Sarah waited patiently for their answer, knowing that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance of this moment. The silence in the crystal chamber stretched for what felt like hours. Each tribunal member sat frozen on their floating platforms, processing the choice that Sarah had given them. Outside the massive windows, stars continued their ancient dance. Unaware that the fate of galactic civilization was being decided in this single room, Chief Arbiter Zexhi was the first to speak. His mental voice was smaller than before, stripped of the arrogance that had defined him for millennia. "If we agree to your terms, what guarantees do we have that humanity will not simply become the new oppressors? Power corrupts all species." Eventually, Sarah nodded, acknowledging the validity of his concern. "You are right to worry about that, which is why we have built safeguards into the new system that did not exist in yours." The holographic display activated once more, showing the structure of the proposed galactic government. But this was unlike anything the tribunal had ever seen. Instead of a single ruling body making decisions for everyone, there were multiple layers of representation with checks and balances built into every level. No single species can control more than 15% of the governing council, Sarah explained. No decision affecting multiple worlds can be made without approval from at least 60% of affected populations. Most importantly, any species that feels oppressed has the right to withdraw from the system entirely. The display showed how disputes would be handled through mediation rather than force, how technological advances would be shared freely rather than hoarded by the powerful, how young civilizations would be guided and protected rather than suppressed and exploited. "The system is designed to prevent exactly the kind of tyranny you created," Sarah continued. "Because we learned from studying your mistakes." One of the Zephyrians fluttered its wings nervously. "And what of us? What roles would we have in this new order? We are not young species learning to govern ourselves. We have ruled for longer than most civilizations have existed." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "Your experience is valuable, even if your methods were wrong. The new government will need advisors who understand the complexities of galactic politics, teachers who can help younger species avoid the mistakes you made, historians who can preserve the lessons of the past." The display showed possible futures for each tribunal species. Zephyrians using their artistic abilities to create cultural bridges between different civilizations. Korthik applying their understanding of long-term stability to help design lasting institutions. Veltar using their shape-shifting abilities to facilitate communication between incompatible species. "You would not rule," Sarah said, "but you would still matter. Your knowledge and abilities would be respected and utilized. You would simply be partners rather than masters." A Korthik's crystalline form pulsed with uncertainty. "And if we refuse? If we choose to fight for what we have built?" Sarah's expression grew sad. "Then you will lose everything, and so will everyone else." The holographic display shifted to show the military analysis that humanity had prepared. The images were devastating in their clinical precision. Every tribunal stronghold identified and targeted. Every defense system analyzed and countered. every possible escape route blocked by human forces that had been positioning themselves for years. We could destroy your entire power structure within 72 hours, Sarah said matter-of-factly. Our agents are already in position on every world you control. Our fleets are waiting just outside sensor range of your major installations. Our cyber warfare systems are ready to shut down your communication networks. The display showed real-time feeds from across the galaxy. Human ships emerging from hidden bases like flowers blooming after a long winter. Alien allies taking control of strategic installations with surgical precision. Most disturbing of all, footage from inside tribunal facilities showing human agents who had been trusted employees for decades suddenly revealing their true nature. But victory would come at a terrible cost, Sarah continued. The chaos of your sudden collapse would cause supply chain failures across hundreds of worlds. Trade networks would break down. Colonies that depend on imported food would starve. The death toll would reach into the trillions. The images shifted to show projections of what galactic collapse would look like. Worlds going dark as power grids failed, ships stranded in space as navigation beacons went offline, cities rioting as basic supplies stopped arriving. The scope of potential suffering was almost beyond comprehension. We do not want that future, Sarah said. We have spent 50 years preparing for this moment not because we enjoy war, but because we wanted to be ready to rebuild when your system finally fell apart. Chief Arbiter Zexhi's form flickered with what might have been respect. You have planned this more thoroughly than any military campaign in galactic history. Yet you still offer us a peaceful transition. Why? Sarah was quiet for a moment before answering. Because destruction is easy. Any species can learn to kill efficiently. We proved that when we turned your own weapons against you. But building something better than what came before, that requires wisdom. And wisdom comes from understanding that even your enemies might have something valuable to offer. She gestured to the peaceful future still displayed in the holographic projection. The new galactic government will face challenges that we cannot even imagine yet. Unknown threats from outside our galaxy. Internal problems that no one has encountered before, scientific discoveries that could reshape reality itself. The display showed theoretical scenarios, first contact with extragalactic civilizations, the development of technologies that could destroy or transform entire star systems, the emergence of artificial intelligences that might surpass organic life entirely. When those challenges come, Sarah said, we will need every bit of wisdom and experience we can gather. Your species have ruled for millennia. You have made terrible mistakes, but you have also learned from them. That knowledge could be crucial for protecting the galaxy from future threats. One of the Veltar began to glow brighter, its gaseous form stabilizing into something resembling hope. You would trust us to help govern after everything we have done? Sarah nodded. Trust must be earned, and that will take time. But yes, eventually. Because the alternative is to repeat the same cycle of oppression and rebellion that has plagued this galaxy for too long. The chamber filled with the sound of alien beings communicating in their various ways. Zephyrian wing music became contemplative, rather than mocking. Kortha crystalline forms hummed with deep thought. Veltar shapes shifted through patterns that indicated serious consideration. Finally, Chief Arbiter Zexhi spoke for all of them. What would be required of us if we agreed to this transition? Sarah consulted a datapad that materialized from her diplomatic pouch. Public acknowledgement of the crimes committed by the tribunal system. Cooperation in establishing reparations for the species you have wronged. Transfer of administrative control to the new governing council within 1 standard year. She looked up from the pad. Most importantly, a genuine commitment to change. Not just accepting the new system because you have no choice, but actively working to make it better than what came before. The holographic display showed what the transfer process would look like. Tribunal facilities being converted into centers of learning and cultural exchange. Ancient archives being open to researchers from all species. Former rulers becoming advisors and teachers rather than supreme authorities. It will not be easy, Sarah admitted. Your species have ruled for so long that many of your people may resist the change. Some may try to sabotage the new system out of nostalgia for the old ways. Others may seek revenge against species they once oppressed. The display showed potential challenges: tribunal loyalists attempting to restore the old order, newly liberated species seeking violent retribution, chaos as traditional power structures collapsed faster than new ones could be built. But we have prepared for those problems too, Sarah said. Human peacekeeping forces will maintain stability during the transition. Mediation teams will help resolve conflicts between former enemies. Most importantly, we will make sure that no one is left behind or forgotten. She gestured to images showing rehabilitation programs for displaced tribunal officials, protection services for vulnerable populations, and economic support for worlds that might suffer during the transition period. We are not here to punish you, Sarah said. We are here to change you, to help you become better than what you were. The tribunal members looked at each other through their various sensory methods. Millennia of absolute power had not prepared them for this moment of choice. They had ruled through strength and fear for so long that the concept of voluntary cooperation felt alien and frightening, but they could also see the alternative. The holographic display still showed the military forces arrayed against them. Human fleets that could reduce their strongholds to rubble. Allied species eager for revenge after generations of oppression. Technologies that could disrupt their most basic biological and technological systems. Chief Arbiter XI's form began to solidify into something more definite, more decisive. We will need time to convince our peoples. Many will see cooperation. As surrender, Sarah nodded. You have 48 hours to make your decision public. After that, the transition begins whether you participate or not. The chamber fell silent again as the weight of the ultimatum settled over them. Outside the windows, the galaxy continued its slow rotation. Unaware that its entire political structure was about to change forever, one by one the tribunal members began to speak. Not the arrogant pronouncements of supreme rulers, but the uncertain words of beings learning to be something new. We accept, Chief Arbiter XI said finally. Not because we have no choice, though that is certainly true, but because ... because perhaps it is time for something different. The other members added their own agreements, some reluctant, others almost eager to escape the burden of absolute power that had defined their existence for so long. Sarah smiled, and for the first time it was a genuinely warm expression. Then welcome to the future. It is going to be difficult and confusing and sometimes frightening, but it will also be better than anything the galaxy has seen before. As she spoke, the chamber's communication systems came back online. Signals began flowing to and from hundreds of worlds, carrying news of the tribunal's decision to species that had waited generations for this moment. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives under the shadow of the tribunal's power began to hope for something they had never dared imagine. A future where they could grow and explore and become whatever they were capable of becoming. The age of the Galactic Tribunal was ending. The age of galactic cooperation was about to begin. And it had all started because one species refused to stay quiet when the universe tried to put them in a cage. Sarah Xian stood in the center of the crystal chamber, no longer alone, watching the birth of a new galaxy unfold before her eyes. Behind her, former tyrants prepared to become teachers. Around her, the instruments of oppression began their transformation into tools of liberation. The warning had been delivered. The choice had been made. The future was about to begin.